to do a little tutorial on finishing up the ornaments for the Woodland Creatures Mystery Stitch Along that we did mid-August to the end of September. I am taping this on two pieces of media, one on my camera and one on my Chromebook, so we'll see how this video turns out. I have high hopes that this is going to work out. So I am going to work with 3 of the 4 ornaments. I have to admit I don't have the 4th ornament, the stitching finished in the 4th ornament yet. And I may actually decide to finish that one a little bit differently than I'm going to show you here this morning. So adjust this a little bit. So what I'm going to show you this morning is how to finish the ornament. Now, oops, dropped it like this. And that's not showing it very, very well. So I'm going to show it on this camera where it should show up quite nicely. So here's the piece and we're going to finish it just like this. So come along with me. Come along with me for the ride to finish. So we've got little fringed edges here. The back is a wool felt and then a little bit of ribbon and stuffing inside. This is a really, really easy finish. I picked this finish because I thought for people, I know that there's a few people, this is their first project where they haven't done a whole lot of cross stitching in a while, and I didn't want you to have to go out and buy a whole bunch of supplies. So this is what this is the finish that I came up with. It's one that I learned how to do. I have an ornament finish like it from 1994. So it's a finish that I have done before and a long time ago, and I love it, and I wanted to show it to you. So first things first, we're going to start off, I'm going to show you what you need. So you need some wool fabric for your background. You need your piece of stitching. So I have the stitching cut out here. I'm using the owl. I've got that cut out. I cut out about, let me measure. I think I did about 1.5 inches. Yeah, I trimmed 1.5 inches around my owl and my bear and my moose. I think my moose and my bear had about closer to 2 inches. I then I laid my square of fabric on top of my wool felt, and I'm going to do this down here because this camera should be picking up on this. Just checking. Okay. So I laid this on top of the felt and just used my ruler and my rotary cutter and cut around. Now you don't need to go out and buy a rotary cutter and a ruler necessarily. You can use a pencil if you have it. Trace around where your distance away that you want, and that because some people like their pieces closer, sometimes people like them further away. So figure out where you want your cut line to be. Trace it out with a pencil and a ruler, and then just use a pair of scissors. Good sharp scissors. Cut around that. The same with the wool. Now speaking of the wool, I don't want you to necessarily feel that you have to go out and buy. I'm a rug hooker, so I have a lot of lovely wool in my stash downstairs, some felted wool. If that's not something you have, I would recommend felt of some form, not necessarily polyester because it'll sew up differently, and the wool is much more forgiving when you're sewing. So I would recommend going to a thrift store, finding a very, very lightweight 100% wool sweater, possibly in the men's section, because you'll get more bang for your buck in terms of what is left over when you felt your sweater. Felting a sweater is completely easy. You throw it in. You can put it in a pillowcase to make sure that it doesn't get anything else, because it will, as it felts, it's going to be giving off fiber. It's going to shed. So it would be an idea for you to take the sweater, 100% wool, put it in a lingerie bag or a pillowcase, a zipped pillowcase. Throw it in the washer with a few other things because you need to make sure it has some agitation. So for the wool to felt, it needs some soap in there. You need hot water, so put it on your hottest water option in your washing machine. and put it in the pillowcase, throw it into the washer. The agitation of the other clothes plus the soap and the hot water will make it felt, and then throw it in the dryer. So you really want the fibers to felt and meld together. And that then just cut it up, cut your seams off, iron it a bit with a little bit of steam, and on your I find I have to use the hottest in order to get my wool straight or flat. I need to use the hottest element. So do that, and then you're ready to go with this. The other thing that I use, lint roller, or just take some tape off in a roll and put it around your finger. I find that we have pets, and I also find that the fiber from the cross stitch material will get on this, and you don't want to be sewing that into the back. So I lint off my wool. Delint it, not lint off. I'm going to be making up Patty words here as I do this tutorial. Really hope you can hear me too. So I've got these two pieces together. So you put them right sides out. We're not turning this inside out. We're not doing any flipping at all. So you take it, you're going to use some pins. Make sure you've got it sandwiched the way you want it. I like to use a lot of pins because I find that as I sew, this moves around quite a bit. So you will need some nice glass bead pins for this. I will put a supply list at the beginning of the video with everything that you'll need to complete this project. Not really liking the angle of the camera. It's not really complimentary to my chins. Oh well, keeping it real here on YouTube. Okay, so once you've got it all pinned, you get ready to do the next part. So we're going to work on Mr. Moose here, who I already have pinned. So what we're going to do with the moose is we're going to start. So if you can see on this, all I've done is cross-stitched. I've cross-stitched all the way around the bear. I chose to cross-stitch, I think it's 2 or 3 stitches from each edge. And I'm going to do the same with this. Now you'll have to bear with me because I'm going to have to take a break in a minute to put on my cheaters. So I'm going to take out a couple pins so I can get in here. So what I do is I'm using a cross stitch needle, a tapestry needle, and I've put a knot in the bottom of my embroidery thread or DMC floss. I'm using black, which is 310, number 310 DMC, and I'm using 3 strands, and my length, my string length is about 14 inches long. That's the personal preference, however long you want it to be. I like around this length because I find it doesn't knot up, and and I'll show you a trick in terms of starting and stopping that so that it doesn't matter how many times you start and stop, you won't be able to notice. So I have my needle and my thread. I've just separated. Of course, your DMC embroidery floss comes in 6s. I've separated this in half. So now I have 2 sets of 3. I am a licker, so I'm just going to moisten the end of the thread and thread my needle, which without my nice little magnifiers on may prove, oh, there we go. Okay, then I make a knot. Your favorite way of making a knot, I make a knot at the end of my, it doesn't matter. I mean, I've got a big loop at the end of my knot. Let's redo that. It doesn't matter how big your knot is. You're not going to be able to see it at all. And it's going to be inside your little pillow. And once you get the stuffing and everything in there, you're not going to see it. So then what I do is I separate the 2 pieces. And I run, if you can imagine, so the felted fabric is a little bit thicker than normal fabric. So I am running my needle I'm picking up a few stitches as I go, but I'm not on the other side. So I'll show you in the back. You cannot see where the needle is. You can't see where the needle, so I've just run that through and pull that. And then I'm going to come up, so I'm going to count. Again, you're doing this with this open, not through the back. At the moment, you're just going through the front. So I am going to count 1, 2, 3 squares over and come up. Then you're just going to start cross stitching. So I use a sewing method. Now I just need to confirm. 1, 2, 3. I use a sewing method, so I'm going to, and this is how you start. You just start cross stitching. Same as you did for your project. You're just going to start cross stitching, and that you make sure when you cross stitch, you can see there's a little bit of black there. It's up to you if you want to use contrast. I chose black because I wanted it to show up as a frame around this piece. If you want to use white, that's fine. If you're going to use white, I would suggest a lighter fabric in the back, because then you're not going to see your stitches come through. You can see mine. It looks neat and tidy. You could cover that with another piece of felt if you wanted to by using tacky glue or spray glue. But I think that looks fine. So I'm going to leave mine like that. So when you're doing your cross stitches, you make sure you go through both pieces of fabric. I use my index. Oh, you also need to be careful that you don't have any threads in the back, because you might sew them in by accident. So I use my finger that's underneath to feel the tip of the needle, because you're using a tapestry needle, so it's not as sharp as a regular needle. Then I bring it up through, oops, and then I bring one down. Now you can use what I call the stab, or I think is known, not just me, but it's known as the stab method. So you can go up, go down. You will see the stitches a little bit more this way. Come up, go down. I'll show you what it looks like in the back. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. Come up and then go down. And so you can see that there's a little bit more black showing through, but really not very much. It still looks very, very neat and tidy. So I'm going to put on my magnifiers here. I have stitched now all the way around. And you can see on the back, see how it's not quite square anymore? Even with the pins, I find that with this method, it moves around a little bit, which is why I allow for 1.5 inches or so on the edges, because I'm going to trim them afterwards. So I'm coming up right now. In order to insert the ribbon, I just cross stitch right through the ribbon. So I have, I've had this ribbon, this is out of my stash. This is 6mm ribbon. Oh, sorry, it's 1/4 inch width. Okay, so it's just a red 1/4 inch ribbon, and I have cut. I think this is 11 inches. Yeah, 11 inches. I like it nice and long, because when I'm hanging it, wherever I hang it, either on the tree or somewhere else, I can always lengthen it. You know, I can change the knot and lengthen it or shorten it depending how I want it to hang. So what I do is just fold it in half, and I have trimmed both ends at an angle. I just think that looks a little bit neater. So folded this in half, and then I'm just going to stick it, take out that pin. I don't know if you can see this very well, but I'm just going to stick it down about 1 inch. So then I've inserted it about 1 inch down, and I'm going to stick a pin through each side so they don't move that much. And I'm going to demonstrate, hopefully I'll be demonstrating so you can see it. So I'm continuing with my sewing method of cross stitching, and I'm just going to go right on through that ribbon, and that tacks it down plenty enough for a hanger. So I'm just stitching 3 or 4 stitches here. Oops. And shortly, another 3 or 4 stitches, I'll be going through the first part of the ribbon. And it doesn't really make any difference to what you're going through in terms of it being harder to get through than the rest of your, getting through the felt. The addition of the ribbon does not create that much of a difference. So, okay, I'm sewing through you can see this, but I am sewing through that ribbon now. And as I said, can't even feel it's there really, which is why I've pinned it. I can see it, the red fiber, but I can't really feel it in terms of sewing or cross stitching. So I've got the first leg. Make sure that hangs straight, and it does. So a couple more stitches, and we'll be right through that second piece of ribbon. And you just keep following those 2 over 2 threads, or following your X's. I'll do some, instead of sewing now, I'll do some up and down cross stitch. So don't be confused when I say sewing. I'm using the sewing method for cross stitching. I'm not doing a running stitch or a straight stitch or anything. It's just a different method of cross stitching versus going up and down. The wind is blowing the curtains. I've got all the windows open to let in the fresh air. And every now and then the wind's taking the curtains, and I see movement out of the corner of my eye, and I'm wondering, what's that? Okay, I'm going through the ribbon again. Using my up and down cross stitch method. And again, I cannot feel the ribbon. It doesn't make it any more difficult for me to cross stitch. And like I said, you fold it, it goes about about an inch into your pillow. Take that out now. And I'll show you once I finish. I'm going to go around a little ways. Turn the corner again on this. And before I show you how to stuff the pillow, and I'll show you how to trim. around the edges, and you have to be careful when you're trimming that you don't trim off your ribbon. So I'll show you how to do that. So I'm just going to finish up here and finish. I'm going to leave about 2 fingers width here so that I can stuff my piece, and then I will come back and show you what to do next. Okay, I've just finished the sewing of up until my space which I've left so that I can stuff. This is the point where I recommend stopping and doing your trimming. Now, trimming with the rotary cutter, oh, just a second, let me move this needle so I don't lose it. Trimming and the rotary cutter are very easy if you have these. Otherwise, so if you just have a pencil and a ruler, again, figure out how far away you want your fringe to be. So the fringe is what I've done here by pulling the threads out. I'll show you how to do that. So figure out how far you want that to be. Mine is 3/4 of an inch from the inside of my cross stitch. Okay? Which is what I'm going to trim this to as well. But with your pencil, trace out 3/4 of an inch and then trim it around, being careful at the top to make sure that you move your ribbon out of the way when you're trimming. Otherwise, you will cut that off and you'll have to restart. Okay? So that's also a little note to me. So I'm just going to trim, like I said, 3/4 from those inside stitches. And this will take care of, I forgot to show you on the back. See how it's not straight because the fabric has moved out of the way. So this will, now that I've trimmed this, it's all even. So that'll help take care of that problem. So again, 3/4 from the inside of my stitching. Cutter needs a little bit of a tighten. There you go. That, this side, and then we'll start to get tricky. Then we'll get to that tricky ribbon because we don't want to cut that off. Okay, so that's 3 sides, easy peasy. So with this, I'm going to tuck the ribbon and the wool to the back. I am measuring 3/4 from the inside of my stitches. Okay. Then I have to do the same here. Now you can easily see your stitch line on the back of this. So I'm just going to fold this fabric and the ribbon to the front. And 3/4 from the inside. Don't have very much actually to take off on the back of this. Just a wee little bit. So then that is even. Then for the top, see it's hanging there nicely. I just make a little knot at the top. Oops, come through here. There we go. If sometimes, you know, by making the knot, you can fray your ribbons. So if you do that, got a couple pairs of scissors here to choose from. Like I said, I like cutting mine at a little angle. So you can see that little angle. So I think it looks neater. Okay, so let's get all this out of the way. So next you're going to stuff before you finish. And let me grab my stuffing, and I'm going to show you a couple things. I've got some lavender here. I'm going to put in just a little bit of lavender, and I need my funnel. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my funnel, some lavender. This is actually edible, you know, eating quality. Take some of that out. Lavender, but it's so old that I wouldn't use it for eating, but it's still it still smells great. So I use just a tiny bit to add a little bit of scent. Something else, if you don't have lavender, dried lavender, if you have any spruce or fir trees around you and their needles fall on the ground, as spruce and fir do, I wouldn't do it with pine needles because the pine needles are so long, unless I guess you crush them up maybe. And I'm not sure do pine needles smell as good? I guess I'm looking for the scent. So if you, I'm just taking my my stuffing here and pulling it apart. I find that does a nice job. This is something I learned from Vanna Pfeiffer at the Twisted Stitcher. So like she always says, give credit where credit's due. So this is fluffing your stuffing is something I learned from Vanna. So then I'm going to stuff this. Oh, back to the pine needles. So if you take some pine or fir needles and you let them dry, so let them get brown, they get that gorgeous, gorgeous smell. And that would also be very nice and very appropriate for these woodland creatures ornaments. So I'm just going to stuff. This is a little finicky. I won't lie. It's not hard. It's just finicky. And sometimes it's nice to have a pen or a pencil, a pen with the cover on it. Excuse me, I reach to help stuff that into the corners. Okay. And hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just stuffing that one in, moving that down to the corner. Want more stuffing for the top corner up here. So I pretty much have this stuffed before I put in the lavender, and I don't put in very much lavender, but I do put the stuffing in first so that if, depending on the weave of your fabric, for example, if you're using a 14 count Aida for your piece, the holes are a little bit bigger than they are in this particular fabric that I'm using, and the lavender it'd be hard, but lavender dust could come out of the holes. So I find if you put in a little bit of stuffing, now I'm actually not going to stuff any more. Oh yeah, I will stuff the other corner before I put in the lavender. And it goes. So then I use my little funnel here, my trusty funnel, which is actually rather large for this project. And pour in a little bit of lavender. Not very much, maybe half a tablespoon, like that, a teaspoonful, teaspoon and a half, maybe. Okay. Some of it's going to come out there, which is fine. So I just stuff that in. And then I put just a little bit more stuffing to kind of close the door. Close the door on that lavender. Okay. So now that that's done, you're just going to go back and cross stitch. Hold this together. You can pin it if you like. Lavender back in here. I love lavender. I don't like wasting a grain. So you need to kind of press on your stuffing, flatten it with your finger as you're stitching. Okay. Now, if you are worried that when you do this, you may miscount, as I did on this. I don't know if you can tell. You can probably tell now that I'm pointing it out, that this is, I've gone over, I came down one too early, or I was off by one row, or one row, I'm not sure. Anyway, I decided not to take it out. With the stuffing and the way it's hung, there's kind of a natural dent there anyway. I don't think that shows up very well. I think it's fine. However, if you're a perfectionist, by all means, take it out and restart. So now I'm going to cross stitch down here, and then we're almost finished. I will show you how to then put the little frayed edge around the edge. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do, all the stitching is done, the back looks fine. smells like lavender or pine needles, whatever you put in it, is we're going to fray around the edges, which is really, really easy. I'm going to show you how to do this and you're going to think, oh, why did she even show me that? It was so easy. So I'm going to start on the ribbon side. Again, pull the ribbon away. You are going to intentionally pull out a thread or one or two at a time up until the point inside. So I left about, I think I left 9, 5, 6, 10. I'm not sure how many strands I left. But so you just pull them away. So you're intentionally fraying for a change instead of the fabric fraying on you. So I just do that with a needle. Do the same on this side. I fold away the back felt a little bit. Just put your needle, your pin in there and pull out. Pulls out very, very easily and gives a really nice finish. And once this is frayed, unless you go back and do this again, a little bit longer, I will go back and count exactly how many holes I have left to make sure this is perfectly even, but I'm not going to do that right now. So again, just pull on the edge. You can do it 1 or 2 threads back. Okay, so we're all finished. Here is the finished piece. I'm going to move the computer a little bit forward here. I'll put some pictures up that show this off a little bit better. So it's fine on the back, fringed on the front. Looks really cute. So I hope you like this tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I will, like I said, I'll insert some better pictures of the finished pieces so that you can see those. And yeah, let me know anything else that, in the comments, anything else that you either need to know, liked, would like me to change for a future tutorial. I hope you enjoyed the stitch along, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon. Bye.